India has a right to change its constitution.
Yes, but changes that marginalize or otherwise threaten minority faiths must be avoided.
The American Religious Town Hall meeting is now in session.
Welcome, friends, to the American Religious Town Hall meeting, where the discussion of religious, political, and social issues is meant to promote the cause of religious freedom and to help us better understand each other. And now, here's your host and moderator, Pastor Jerry Lutz.
Thank you, Mark. I, too, would like to welcome you to today's program. The American Religious Town Hall meeting has been gavelled into session. You've only heard from two of our panelists. You don't know who they are yet, and so we're going to ask that everyone introduce themselves. Let's go around the circle. Let's begin with the gentleman to my right.
I am Bishop Michael Olson, and I am the Bishop of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Fort Worth, Texas.
Hi, I'm Tom Plumley. I'm a minister in the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. I serve at First Christian Church, Fort Worth, Texas.
Hi, I'm Tony Matthews, and I serve as senior pastor at North Garland Baptist Fellowship in Garland, Texas.
I'm Andrea Luxton. I'm president of Andrews University, which is in Berrien Springs, Michigan, and we are affiliated with the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Hi, I'm Carl Troval. I'm the Richard J. Dinda Professor of Lutheran Identity and Mission at Concordia University in Austin, Texas, affiliated with the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod.
And my name is Mel Robeck. I'm an ordained minister with the Assemblies of God. I serve the church as a senior professor of church history and ecumenics and special assistant to the president for ecumenical relations at Fuller Theological Seminary in Pasadena, California.
All right, thank you very much, and welcome to you, each one of you, for taking time from your schedules to be here today for today's discussion. This is an interesting and important one. Let's get right to our subject. In India's recent elections, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Bharatiya Janata Party were returned to power to a landslide vote. The BJP is often described as a Hindu nationalist party. Mr. Modi and his followers seem to be moving India towards a position of Hindu nationalism, whereby it is likely that Christians, Muslims, and other minority faiths will become increasingly marginalized and likely persecuted. Since 2017, some members of Parliament have advocated changing the Indian Constitution to move it from a secular state to a Hindu state. Nasareen Susai, Bishop of the Kotar Diocese in South India, warns that if this change takes place, discrimination and persecution against the country's Christians and other minority faiths will likely increase from its already high level. We would like our panelists to respond to the following questions. First question is this: what do you think is driving the move toward a kind of Hindu nationalism in India? The next question is, should people of faith outside of India respond to this possibility? And if so, how? And the third question for today is, what can Christians in India do to prepare for such a possibility? That is our discussion for today. Let's go back to those who helped to begin the program, and we'll go back then to Carl Troval. Dr. Troval, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Nice
and can you tell us more of your thoughts on this subject, please?
Sure. I said India has a right to change its constitution, and I said that mostly because India is a democracy, and always the danger of democracy is that you give the power to the people, and if the people have an idea you don't like, it can be troubling. And here I'm really disturbed by the nationalism, I'm disturbed by the persecution, profoundly disturbed. And I hope that they don't change their constitution, but whether they have a right to do it, according to the Constitution, yeah, they have the right to do it, and through the means. A couple of things here. First of all, the rise of this persecution is due to Hindu nationalism, but I think everyone's got to understand one thing, and that is that the secularist constitution that it has was a colonial imposition upon India by Britain and others, and it was a way to maintain peace in the country when India gained its independence from Britain. And so the secularist constitution already has in the minds of many people in India a sense that this is a colonial imposition that is not internal to India itself. Hence, it's natural for any of us, if something was imposed on us, that we're going to rebel against it to a certain extent. What exacerbates this is there's a significant Muslim minority, which there's always ongoing tension between Pakistan and India and other Muslims. In India, Hindus make up 80% of the population, Muslims 13%, Christians make up 2%, and Buddhists, Sikhs, and others make up 5%. So you have an understanding of how the makeup is. I think this is one other significant aspect to this nationalism, is that in the imposition of the secularist constitution, in the caste system in Hinduism, it's a social structure that is essentially there through religious reinforcement. In Hinduism, this is broadly general, but in Hinduism, when you die, depending on how you lived your life, you will be reincarnated and you will move up or down that caste, depending. You go up in the caste and gain more social power, you go lower in the caste if you don't live your life according to your caste rules. So what essentially we have is a religion that has established a very strict social structure in which you can't bring issues of justice. In the secularist constitution, there's an attempt to kind of undermine that, but it was done in coordination with the very top caste. And so this nationalism is really not just a rebellion against anti-colonialism, it's a rebellion against the upper castes by people who had no ability to fully participate in India's life. And so the upper class caste is using this as a way of bringing a complete and total, to unify all the castes together in a movement against those who they say really are invaders of India, namely Christians, Muslims, and others. I wanted to set that up so we have an understanding of why this nationalism is rising.
And you set that up very well. That's a lot of very important information that I think sets the table for us today. And then also, Dr. Matthews, you started off with a comment as well, contrary a little bit to what was presented by Carl.
Yes, exactly. And I appreciate Carl's comments, and I think we all agree too that any changes that are made should not marginalize or threaten the lives of people. I've been to India twice, and I've worked in various places as far out to the village and the tribal areas, and have a great fondness for India. And I know historically India was quite tolerant. And from folks on the inside of India who I've spoken with about this troubling situation, they basically are saying that the persecution with the Christians and the Muslims are just atrocious. There are physical threats. There are people are being lynched. Public beatings, pastors are being killed, Christians and Muslims, and the right of pastors are taken away or curtailed. It's a very troubling time, and within India, the slogan that they have now is Muslims go to Pakistan, Christians go to Europe, and India is for Hindus. And so if you are going to come home to India, you have to, that means you have to renounce Islam and Christianity. So it's a troubling time, and I'm having people who are in India that I know very well. As I said, I've been there a few times. It's just very troubling. And the persecution is real, the fear is real, and I hope we can, just pray for them and that things will get a lot better for them.
Well, thank you very much. The table's been set for the rest of our discussion. Dr. Robeck, if you would please give us your perspective.
Yeah, I think both of these comments have been really excellent, and they really do bear upon a great deal of what's going on there. One of the big problems, of course, is the caste system, which theoretically has been done away with. But it isn't. You can go to any local newspaper on a Sunday and you can find a whole section about people who have their daughters or their sons they want to marry off. And they want to make, they always tell what class they're in, what caste they're in, what their educational requirements have been met. And, there are a whole string of things. But they're all related to the caste system within the Hindu religion. Secondly, I would say that Christians have had a significant impact, even though they're only 2%. They've had an enormous impact, mostly at the lowest level, the Dalits. The Dalits have converted like crazy. And the Dalits have converted in part because Hinduism looks at them as though, I mean, they're untouchable. They're not worth anything. They're just trash.
They're outcasts.
Outcast. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Whereas Christians say, no, you're a child of God. Yeah. And when they get that kind of identity, then they say, well, I don't have to live this way, and they begin to cause turmoil within the social structures that go all the way back up to the Brahmins at the top. So I think it's an economic issue. I think it's a religious issue. I think it's an issue of keeping, of power. And it's a very difficult situation. And all of this persecution, I get a quarterly readout from the Evangelical Fellowship of India, which lists page after page after page of the kinds of incidents that have taken place. The Catholic Church in India has also issued a number of things, but they do it generally about annually. But the fact of the matter is, I think our churches are all in danger over there. If they change the Constitution, and the Prime Minister was just elected with many people clamoring, get this Constitution changed, we need a Hindu state. It's very anti-colonial at the moment, and I think that in the past 5 years, persecution against Christians has gone up 400% under the current Prime Minister, who's just now been reelected. So I wait and see, but it's really scary.
Thank you very much. And Bishop Olson, how is it with the Catholic Church and your observations about what's happening there?
Oh, I think that's very troubling, as has been highlighted. It's Christianity predates colonialism in India as well. I mean, from the first century, there have been AD, there have been Christians there, and particularly in the states of Kerala and Goa, very, very Christian areas of India. Also, another aspect or factor that has to be brought in is that English has been a unifying factor in India, because there are several hundred dialects that are the dominant languages in each particular state or tribal areas. And so, as far as unity is concerned, Hindi is even not as well spoken as English is. And so there's also political ties to that as far as colonialism is concerned. I think that one further aspect is that India really it's only been collectively treated as a nation for 150, 200 years. Before that, it was very much identified by the various tribes and the various language groups that are within that, as well as then the religion of Hinduism, whether one was adherent of that or having it foisted on them, or persecuted by it. And I think that's also part of the history that we have to consider. I think ultimately, more than history, even more than history that shapes us is just our basic humanity, which includes not only a capacity for reason, but a capacity to form community, a capacity to love, and a capacity as well to come together and meet basic needs that the individual themselves cannot meet. And so hopefully religious liberty is absolutely essential and necessary for that to go on.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Luxton, your position on this, please.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard so much already about the situation. I don't think I have anything to add with that. Clearly, we're in a problematic situation. And I think the last two questions we asked is, well, what can be done? And what should we say to Christians in India, and how should they respond? Maybe we haven't gone there yet because we really don't know. I mean, this is troubling because, yes, they do have the right to create things. I suppose the question is, what can our individual faith communities do through their religious liberty and the influences that they have through religious liberty more widely? Is it something that has to eventually, if it does become a case where there is significant persecution, does it then actually rise to a level of a political issue? Yeah. And it really can't be done through faith communities. Is that where the level of response is? think the most important thing is that we don't lose sight of what's going on, and that responses don't become reactive, but there's a level of proactive engagement in this, whether it's through churches or whether it's through politics.
All right, thank you. Reverend Plumley, your take on this, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to follow up on Dr. Luxton's comments. I think that our responsibility is to make sure that we behave in such a way that we model a different sort of behavior. We model what we expect of everyone else in the world. And then we have the voice, then we have the right to voice our displeasure with things that they do. And we have the right to put diplomatic pressure through our State Department. Sometimes we try to do things to have an effect on the other side of the world, and we do things in reaction to, in a way of punishing someone or some group in order to affect some nation from which they come or something like that. We must do the opposite of that. We must treat people very well. We must remember. I think what we need to say to India that all nations are judged by the way they treat the least among them. All nations are judged by the way they treat the minorities that are in their midst. And then we need to make sure that they can't say back to us, oh yeah, but how about the way y'all are treating those folks or those folks? Which means, we have to clean up our act and then move into the diplomatic realm.
And seeing that India is a country seeking unification, and Carl, you were describing the complexity of the relationships among the castes and the various religions. It can't be an easy process, as we are observers looking into it, and some of us who've been to India, we've seen it firsthand. Mm-hmm. And so a further comment from you with regard to what can the church do to influence. Reverend Plumley has suggested something here. Be a good example. Go there and behave in such a manner to help them preserve what cultural elements they see can't be compromised, but at the same time to find a presence there. Any further thoughts on that?
Well, a couple. I think that if those of us who sit in the United States have an understanding of how nationalism plays itself out, wrapping oneself in the flag and then demonizing people who are other than what kind of a traditional American supposedly looks like, and what's scary is that this is a natural human instinct to get the tribe together against the other. In fact, they use the word other for Muslims and Christians as if they are not a part. And this is always, it's driven by fear. It's driven by fear. And so my encouragement would be for at least American Christians, A, pray, but B, I think to write letters of support, and find out what your churches and their connections support your churches that are in India that you have, and to educate yourself on the history of India and all of this so that you have a deeper sense so that you can have solidarity with the people who are there.
Thank you. Bishop Olson, you wanted to add a further comment.
I think those are all very good points, but I think there's something further that's we don't always pay attention to because it's not the most obvious, and that is really there's a multinational effect here where India is a large market. Yeah. And we have multinational corporations who go to India for cheaper labor, and before national structures, in a sense, were support and set up these corporations, but now the multinational corporations are really dominating nations. And I think sometimes they use the nationalism as a way to keep people uneasy, so as then they have to accept lower wages and they maintain their status as a market. And I think that's something where for example, religions that are, I'm speaking as a Catholic, there's a sense of a global aspect to our faith, all right, that can challenge, has a voice that can challenge, at least if it's not neutralized, these other multinational effects at injustice.
All right, thank you. Dr. Matthews,
Yes,
you want to add
when I was in India, one of the most vivid things that I've seen was kids walking 5 miles, and this is not hyperbole, 5 miles barefooted for a scoop of rice.
About 20 seconds.
And so these pastors are trying to minister to these people, and when we were working with the Untouchables, it was very obvious that that was not, they didn't want us to do that. I would encourage Indians to know their Constitution, in particular Article 25, which is the religious freedom piece there, and we just got to pray for these folks.
All right, thank you very much. That is all the time we have for this segment, but thank you for being with us so far. There is an important announcement I'd like for you to stand by to hear, and in a moment we'll be back.
Thank you, Pastor Lutz. We hope you are enjoying today's program. If you would like to learn more about the American Religious Town Hall, please visit our website at americanreligious.org. That's americanreligious.org. There you can read about the mission and history of the program, learn about the Town Hall estates, and view past programs by clicking the appropriate menu buttons. Each week, Pastor Lutz looks forward to receiving your letters. You may write to him at the address shown on your screen. Send your letters to Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. That's Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. Thank you for writing, and thank you for watching. And now, back to you, Pastor Lutz, and today's closing statements.
Thank you. Welcome back. I do encourage you to go to the website. You can learn some things there about the town hall, the history of the town hall, which is also very interesting, by the way. And you can learn about the town hall estates, as well as see past programs of the American Religious Town Hall Meeting. We're going to go to our summations just now. Let's begin with Bishop Olson. You're first.
The current challenges to peace and religious liberty in India are in many ways symptomatic of a people that are still coping with the after effects of colonization. The basic natural human instinct and for the human beings to flourish involves the freedom of conscience, which includes the freedom of religion. And so as India continues to address their challenges, it's in their best interest to keep in mind the dignity of each and every human person that requires these basic rights.
Thank you. Now, Dr. Matthews.
Yes, I would encourage our Indian brothers and sisters to be good Indians, to raise these issues in the public forum, and know that Christianity is a religion that has stood the test of time. And we're praying for you as well.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Troval.
In echoing what Bishop Olson just said, human rights is not a Western imposition upon the rest of the world. It is something that is inherent and fundamental to what it is to be a human, and it's universal, not only one country. And I would encourage those in India to look to the depths of what it is to be a human being and to foster toleration for people of other religions.
Well said. Thank you very much, and for your participation. Dr. Robeck, your turn.
Yeah, I think the Declaration of Human Rights is a very important document, and India was part and parcel to that, as well as everybody else, and it does talk about religious freedom. But in India, you know, right now, I would say for the past 10 to 12 years, they've had anti-conversion laws. You know, it's not possible to convert people. People must come to you and request to be converted, and they must go to the police department and register the fact that they want to be converted before they can be converted. Right. So it's very difficult to become a Christian in India, and it's been made more difficult, and now there is some question about whether these anti-conversion laws will be strengthened with greater penalties against the pastors and the churches and so forth. You know, it's a constant problem. So I think we have to pray for, absolutely we have to pray for these people. The Evangelical Fellowship of India does circulate this document, and at the end of this document, it'll give the names and addresses of people in Parliament that you should write. I've never felt comfortable about writing to a diplomat in another country. I mean, I'm an American, I will write to Americans, but not to Indians. But I do think that where Indians are able to do so, they should. And then finally, I do think that we are concerned about religious freedom in every country. And India is only one out of many where there's very little, if any, religious freedom. So I think we have to continue to work on that on a diplomatic level.
Thank you. Dr. Luxton now.
I think we've had some very good conversations around the table, including those that ask us to look a little bit more inward to our own situation and say, well, you know, do we have it all right, or we're standing in judgment here? Is America a place where we live out the freedoms that we say we espouse? And with that in mind, I suppose, you know, India is a country that economically is on the rise. We are engaging with India on an economic level, even beyond the political level. And I suppose the question to our viewers is, where is our, when something reaches the level of human rights violation, okay, where ethically should we stand in the positions we take, whether they're economic or business, that lie even beyond politics?
Thank you, Dr. Luxton. And now Reverend Plumley.
Thank you. I read a paper that had been prepared by an internationalist scholar on the international effects of the impending change in the Constitution. And two things that were said were very interesting. That India has a reason to keep the Dalai Lama in play as a player in Southern Asia, and therefore they are okay with Tibetan Buddhism. They also have an initiative with Sikhism, and that is offering, according to that scholar, some real possibilities for better engagement with Pakistan. I think those are examples of how, if aid or money or business and security concerns are at stake, that distinct minorities can be tolerated and protected. So we've got to find out what that is to protect folks that we care greatly about over there.
Thank you. Thank you very much. A lot to be learned, and a lot has been learned around this table. And thank you so much for the insight and for the education. I'm sure this has stimulated some thoughts on your part at home as you've been watching. Dig into it a little more deeply. Yes, it's a country far away, but we share great concerns, particularly about religious tolerance. For now, the charter of the American Religious Town Hall provides that Roman Catholics, Protestants, Jews, educators, and others may appear on this program and can declare their beliefs without hesitancy. And the rest of the members of the panel will uphold and guarantee that American right to all who will appear, irrespective of race or creed, so that the rest of the world can see that here in America we believe in civil and religious freedom, not only in theory, but in reality. And so now, friends, until next week at the same time and over this very same channel, or however you've watched this today, the American Religious Town Hall meeting stands adjourned. And may the God of all of us bless all of you.